Hello, and thank you for joining us. Today, I'm joined by my two guests, Kate Gregory and Sally Lawson, some very familiar faces from the mighty Agent Rainmaker. Sally and Kate, how are you doing today?
We're good, thank you.
Yeah, all good. Thank you, David. Thanks for having us.
Good to have you with me today. And today, I'd like to sort of focus on time. I hear from agents so often that they're busy. We're busy. We're busy doing this and we're busy doing that. And very often we're busy, sort of being busy fools, and we don't understand that there is good use of our time, and sometimes there are tasks and think functions that we tend to fill in an agency that can be done by other people, and perhaps as the leaders of a business, we're not the best placed people to do that. And you guys have a unique perspective on this, so I'd like to get your thoughts on it.
Thank you, David. Well, absolutely. Time is, I mean, myself and Kate, we've worked with literally hundreds of agents over the last few years, and it's a thing that comes up every single time. Things like, do you know what, Sally, I'd love to do that, but I just haven't got time. And it's just the answer for everything. And so we said, okay, so what are you spending your time on? And I actually get people to actually do like a time and study sheet for a couple of weeks and analyze what they and their team are spending their time on. And honestly, David, you would be astounded some of the things that people do. I've actually got a video when we actually asked this of a room of 50 delegates. I had things like going to see landlords to advise on decor. I had going around to see the tenant about a fridge that had failed and spending an hour getting shouted at. I've had replacing the decking for a landlord who didn't want to pay a contractor, so I went and replaced the decking myself.
Wow.
I've had removing washing machines from a third-story flat and carrying the washing machine down the stairs on my back. I've had another lady who tells me she goes to the dump at least once a week to go and remove rubbish. I've had people waiting for British Gas in empty houses for 8 hours because the landlord didn't want to pay an extra £10 for your contractor, so they waste 8 hours of your time waiting for British Gas. And I've had literally thousands of people tell me they've gone cleaning and they've been removing rubbish and all those sort of different things. We even had one little tiny lady that's 4 foot nothing. David, you wouldn't believe this. She was a tiny little blonde girl. I mean, literally, you could have blown her over. She was that svelte. And she said that she had kicked out squatters. And I said, well, how did you do that? She goes, I went round and I shouted at them. I said, my God.
I think she said she used her angry voice, didn't she? Bless her, yeah.
I look amazed, but I think we're all guilty of this from time to time. We live in our businesses have changed and our industry's changed, and we've moved to be more of a helping profession where we need to sort of add value and be kind to people and spend time trying to solve their problems. But we in some cases we don't know where to draw the line. So yes, there's one thing bending over backwards to help your client, but when you're sat in an empty property waiting for British Gas to turn up for 8 hours, you realize that they don't necessarily value your time. And I'll tell you something, you probably haven't valued your time properly either. And it's amazing to hear these little stories, because I bet the people that were recounting these things to you didn't even realize that that's what they were doing with their time.
They think they're offering good service, don't they? And I think that's the problem, is because lettings is a service-driven business. It's all about making the customer feel good and delivering, and people want to go above and beyond, and they think that's what makes them good, good in business. But actually, you're cultivating with the staff this sort of culture of saying yes to everything. And as you quite rightly say, this means you don't stand for anything and you have no value on your time. And also, we've got to remember that we are business owners, not just customer service agents. And by saying yes to everything, you've got kind of you're wasting people's time, you're disregarding your own value, but also you've got nowhere to grow or go from, really, have you?
And there's a bigger problem as well, and that is that if you actually check out your insurance for what you're insured for, you will not be insured for insert and fixing decking, kicking out squatters, sending 4 foot nothing members of staff around to remove rubbish, walking down stairs with your washing machine on a back, or even taking rubbish to the tip, for example. You need a waste disposal license for that, and your car will need to be insured for business use. And so you're actually making the business liable. And if your staff are doing that, then you've got vicarious liability, because your staff, you are liable for any damage that your staffs make as a result of doing these sort of things. So there's far bigger problems than just time, but of course we're here today to talk about time. So let's have a little look at that. So one thing I think you've absolutely spot on there, David, is that the people doing this don't value their time. And here's an interesting little story which may sort of dig a little bit deeper on that. I can remember one of our first franchisees, lovely, lovely lady, Lisa. She was so great at what she did. She was a brilliant prospector. She could hit the phone for and just generate, new landlords left, right, and centre. And she had somebody who could do her inventories for her at this time. This is about 8 years ago, but she could do the inventories for about £40 a time, which is quite a good deal, really, for inventories. Even back then, that was a good rate. And she went out and she did this inventory, and she'd spend like 7 hours on this big, massive detached, full of furniture, full of ornaments, all that sort of 7 hours on this inventory. I said, Lisa, that's crazy. Why would you spend 7 hours with that? She goes, well, it doesn't cost me anything. And I was like, are you sure? She says, well, it cost me 40 quid. I'm just trying to save money. I said, well, okay, so let me ask you the question, Lisa. In 7 hours, what could you have done for your business that could generate more than £40? She thought about it and she said, well, I suppose I could have hit the phones. I could have done some prospecting. I could have negotiated an acquisition. I could have bought some properties. I could have sold some properties. I was, oh my God, what am I doing? And that was an exact example of what I'm talking about here, that we need to value our time. And so sometimes what we do as business owners, and not just letting agents, we all do this in business, we look at that bottom cost and say, you must see this in the tech world, David. When people look at a bit of technology, or something's going to save them so much time, they go, yeah, but it's £400 a month. Yeah, but £400 a month is going to save you 6 hours a day or 10 hours a week, and what can you do with that time that can generate more than £400 a month? Oh, I don't know, it's a lot of money. To me, what they're saying when they can't afford that £400 a month is that you actually couldn't generate £400 a month in 8 hours. Surely you could. You could hit the phones, do a deal, do some negotiations, make some videos, go live, build some affiliations, do something. And that valuing that time is so important, but we don't do it. You're absolutely right. We don't. We look at that cost, and we don't look at the value that we can build with that time.
And just because somebody can do something doesn't mean that they should be doing something. And I think it's probably testament to our industry and the agents that are in it. We tend to juggle so many different hats and play different roles that we are now multifaceted in terms of the skill set that we have. So we can do a lot more than just, one simple task. And we spread ourselves too thin instead of sort of concentrating on the areas that generate profit. So once you've managed to open their eyes to this, Sally, what's the next step? I mean, presumably this behavior doesn't change overnight. You need to sort of...
Well, what we're very good here at Agent Rainmaker is we make people look at their business differently. So really what we do is we open their eyes to the problems, the challenges, and then we say, well, hey, let's have a look at this. So I'm going to give you a little thing I've written down here that I wanted to share with you. Is we'd give them a technique, we'd give them a strategy for realizing how much their time is actually worth, because we just don't realize how much we're worth. And obviously as a CEO, your time is worth so much more than an administrator or lister, because you can do so much more with your time. But a very simple way of calculating how much you should make sure you're earning every single hour of every single day is to basically if you just take the total cost of running your business, the total cost, whether that's £100,000, £500,000, whatever your total cost is for the year, divide it by 253 days, that's working days in the year. I've taken off bank holidays and weekends. By all means, use a different figure, but I've divided by 253. Then I've divided that by 8 hours in a day. That's how much your business should be generating every single hour. Now, if you've got 3 staff, for example, divide that by 3 staff. That will give you the price on everyone's head, usually somewhere between £25 and £75 is roughly where that figure is. That's the price on everybody's head. Now, of course, as a CEO, I would ask you to double that because you're a much more valuable member of staff and you can do so much more. But remember, at that price, you're only covering costs. You're not making a profit. Now, a business, the definition of a business is a series of systems and processes that creates a consistent result that generates a profit. So what I would say is go back to that first figure. What is the cost of your business? Let's say it's £500,000. If you want to make a 50% profit, which we now have letting agents making 50% profit using this system, take that number and double it. So if your turnover is 500,000, you now want to make it 1 million because you want a 50% profit margin. Do that calculation again, 1 million divided by 253, divided by 8, divided by how many staff you have. You now have a different number, which will be something between £50 and £100 roughly. I mean, it varies. There's no right or wrong, it varies. but you now need to achieve, let's say, £100 per hour for every person sitting in your office. And so now you have a value, a price on everybody's head. If you want to make £1 million and your figure is, let's say, £100, and you're sitting there, right, do I send one of my staff out to do an inspection, or do I pay someone to do an inspection? You can now say, well, okay, it's going to take an hour. If it's less than 100 quid, I'll pay someone. If it's 100 quid, I'll have one of my staff doing it. So you really have a value on everyone's head as to what everything costs. And David, you'll be surprised. And what I make people do after that is work out how much an inspection costs, because a lot of letting agents do inspections for free still. It's crazy, but a lot of people still do inspections for free built into their service. They're doing 400 inspections a year on 100 properties, totally free of charge, taking them like 800 hours if you work out the booking the appointment, getting there, doing it, the notes, the letters, and all that sort of stuff. 800 hours for free. It's absolutely insane. So work out how much it costs.
It's fascinating that, but let's concentrate on that part of it. You touched on it very briefly there, but there is so much that we tend to sort of offer as a service within a lettings and a management context that we're not necessarily specifying upfront what it is that we're doing. We're saying we're coming to manage your property. It's very much more than rent collection. It's very much more than just making sure that the tenant is safe and the property is repaired. What we're very bad at is managing expectations, clients' expectations up front as to the fullness of the service and the limitations sometimes of that service, and what is included in our upfront charges and what may be additional extras. So we spoke off camera and we talked about agents' terms and conditions sometimes not being fit for purpose. It's something the corporates do really well, but as independents, we very often overlook this. So how important is that?
It's hugely important. It's hugely important. I mean, most of the letting agency terms and conditions I've seen look like something that was written 20 years ago. Because what's happened, if we're honest, in this industry, I've been around 30 years in this industry. So 30 years ago, I researched what was going on in the market, and I probably copied someone's terms and conditions. In fact, I think I did copy someone's terms and conditions and made it a bit better. And of course, over the years, you added on a little bit, but not a lot changed. Some people are still doing that. So they've still got terms that they used 10 or 20 years ago. They've just copied it, they've retracted it. It's 2 or 3 pages. Just to give it an example, ours is 45 pages long. So what you've got to try and do is you've got to make sure that everything that you do is broken down. Everything. So for example, I'll give you a simple example. Most letting agency terms that I've seen will say, we'll do the property management for you and we will charge 10%. It doesn't say what that includes. And so as far as the landlord's concerned, you do anything to do with that property, occupied, unoccupied, tenanted, anything like that whatsoever, you will do anything involved in that property at any point. And that is insane. Now imagine you going to an accountant and saying, okay, you did my company books for me, can you do my personal accounts for me, and by the way, can you do my overseas property accounts for me as well? Because they'd say no, it's just not included. The solicitor wouldn't, throw you in a free divorce with every conveyancing. They're quite clear what they're charging you for. And they've even got a clock. It would, wouldn't it? I'd be on discount galore by now. But they actually have timing clocks. As soon as they pick up the phone, they're charging you. Whereas we tend to be like, yeah, of course, just bring it on, we'll do everything. And then we're carrying this heavy burden of time. Kate, you've come across this so many times. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think one of the things is we're not letting them know what we're doing. And if we wanted to be seen as property professionals and we're wanting to perhaps charge, higher fees, and as we're talking about valuing our time and charging our worth and knowing our hourly rate and all those sorts of things, we've got to not presume that they know what we're doing all day, every day. And lettings was very different 20, 30 years ago, where, we sit in offices with no computers and we signed a bit of paper and off they went into their property. The legislation is so vast now that as an industry, you've had to evolve and adapt and add more and more and more and more steps into the process to keep people safe and all those kind of things. But I don't think we've made a very good job at letting the landlords know this. We're not telling them all of the things that we're doing. As you quite rightly say, Sal, we say we'll manage the property for 10%. And even that in itself is an error, because we're not managing the property, we are managing the tenancy. So even there, people are falling short on that, because you're opening the door to, as you say, oh, the roof's leaking and there's this and that. That's not what we're doing. As agents, we are managing the tenancy for the life of the tenancy. And so even that sort of, change of wording can really help change people's mindsets. But we've got to be telling them what we're doing. We want to justify ourselves and talk as property professionals. We need to tell them what we're doing. And if it means having a 45-page terms and conditions to spell that out, then that's what we need to do.
And what better way to tell them than the terms and conditions?
Absolutely.
So I'll give you a little example here. Certain online letting agents, their terms, and a lot of them are very, very, very clear. And they will drill down to the level of detail of how many rent arrears letters they will send and how many rent arrears phone calls they will make. That is how detailed they are. And once you've go down the route of making sure you're charging your pound per hour, making sure you're charging for everything that you do, you will actually realize how vague most people's terms and conditions are, because you'll see that it doesn't say whether we do include the Wi-Fi in the communal area of a HMO. Do we actually deal with a drain that's blocked half a mile up the road? Is that our thing? I don't know. What are we responsible for? So you need to be very, very clear what you do and you don't do. And here's one little tip I'm going to throw in with your terms and conditions. Whatever your terms and conditions say, have in there additional service charge. So anything else that we're asked to do outside of the terms and conditions is £20 an hour, £50 an hour, £100 an hour if it's the CEO dealing with it, whatever it is. Just have an additional charge in there as well that covers other stuff. Otherwise, you just get run ragged, doing favours and freebies. And I've even had letting agents let dogs out for landlords as favours and things. I mean, it's just insane. It really is.
I just used to draw the line at forwarding post in an empty property, but you've opened my eyes to possibility of dog sitting services as well.
You put that in terms and conditions, Kate. We'll change it later.
An hourly rate, David. That everything's got a price, right?
That could be my niche, actually.
So here's the line that you use with that one. You just, when they say, could you go and sit in the property for me for 8 hours and wait for British Gas? Certainly so. We charge £50 an hour. When would you like us to go? Oh, no, forget it.
Well, on that note, do you think the reason that agents have avoided doing this is it's not just laziness or oversight, but they've always been very worried about adding on extra charges? What if my landlord won't want to pay for that. He won't want to pay for additional services. And there is this, I just touched on it there about forwarding post in an empty property. There's that no man's land between one tenant moving out and another tenant moving in, where you are, let's face it, not earning any money, but you could have to visit that property several times for whatever reason. But it's not really coming out of anybody's income at that stage because it's not generating income. So we've been worried about raising these issues with landlords because we're worried that they'll run a mile. What's your experience of
You're absolutely right. Nearly every single person that we speak to says, oh, it's different in my area. It won't work for me. My landlords wouldn't take that. So-and-so down the road is cheaper. We've always had to keep our fees light. Everyone else doesn't charge for that. So we've had all the excuses. And all I can say is that of the 1,000+ people that we've helped to implement these changes, not one single one has had their landlords run for the hills. The actual stats are you will have 1 or 2 out of 100 which will complain. They will be the people that you think about when you think about implementing changes. That awkward landlord, the one that's a real pain, that's going to be the one that will object. You can choose to stand by your ground, or you can choose to let him stay on his existing fees, whatever you want to do, it's up to you. But what you do need to do is you need to always, with any change, you need to give them a reason why. When you change something, you don't just say, hey, we're increasing our fees because we need to make more money. That's not going to go down very well. But if you were to increase your fees because of the increased burden of legislation from the Deregulation Act and all the changes with the HHSRS and the Homes and Fitness Standards, the compliance and the consumer protection regulations, all the things that you have to abide by now, and you can explain that's increased your workload, it's increased the training criteria for your staff, it's increased the tech requirement for your business, and as a result, unfortunately, we have no other opportunity, no alternative but to increase these fees. Usually what you will get back is, I understand, thank you for letting me know, and my word, I didn't realise you did so much. So it's about explaining and understanding the logic. Think about it. How many times do we get your mobile phone bill is increasing, your electricity rate is increasing, your council tax is
And
going
we
up? It's
accept it
life.
as a fact.
I was going to say this. The fear thing about this is because that's what it is. It's fear that's stopping people from changing or that sort of thing. Imagine if other businesses ran like that. You know, if you look at a supermarket whose cost of buying a can of baked beans is 20p, and then they're selling it out at 50p, and then as the years go on, the cost of that can of baked beans goes up until it's costing them 57 pence, and they're still selling it out at 50 pence because, oh my God, they might be worried that the customers might go down the road to another supermarket. The business model doesn't work. And unfortunately, most agents looking at this, because time is an agent's commodity, that's what we've got, that's what we leverage, it is time is money, is that they aren't doing that. They're not following that. They're not thinking that now it's taking 10, 20, 30 more time to do our job, and yet we're still sticking at the same price. So actually, a lot of people will be running at a loss, and it's just not good business sense to be doing that. So yes, fear might be the underlying root of not wanting to change, but if they don't change, we will not be in business, and that's the sad fact about it.
It's very often that most needy landlord that you sort of profiled earlier is often the one where you lose the most money because they expect the most out of you. Whereas you might have one client that never ever calls, they never have a problem, you're collecting the rent, you're collecting your commission every month, you'll never get any kind of trouble out of them whatsoever. And that's what, so we work on a law of averages. We have volume of instructions, and so we don't very often keep a track of where we're leaking time or money. And it's fascinating to get your take on it. So you guys are obviously well known for opening agents and business owners' eyes as to exactly the reality of life and the reality of their situation. How satisfying is it to sort of see that light bulb moment where
it's phenomenal, David? It's absolutely phenomenal. We ran a boot camp last weekend. We do every few months, we do a boot camp, and you see 25, 30 letting agents walk in with a range of emotions, from I've had enough, this is the last ditch attempt of doing something with my business, there's just no landlords out there, I'm not making any money, I'm sick of the staff earning more than I am, I'm sick of worrying about payroll every month. Those are the sort of general feelings when they walk in. They won't admit it at that point, but that's the general feelings that they walk in. And one thing we're very good, if we're good at anything here at Agent Rainmaker, is we're not scared of getting right into the detail. I want to know your hourly rate. I want to know everything that you do in your business. I want to know exactly what you're charging. And then we can change it, because to me, I'm a mechanical mindset. I've always been a mechanical mindset. So I see pulleys and levers. So when I say, right, what do you charge? And I say inspections, nothing, inventories, nothing, check-ins, nothing, checkouts, nothing. I'm thinking, okay, you're sitting on a gold mine. You're absolutely sitting on a gold mine. I'm going to give you the levers to pull to change that. And they're like, oh my God. And all of a sudden, we take them through a 4-stage plan, because it's not just about fees. You can increase revenue by increasing leads, by getting better quality leads, increasing your conversions, increasing the volume that comes through. There's and additional services. We talk a lot about additional service and things like that. So there's many, many levers you can pull. But what we do is we really explore that. And to see somebody go from, I've just had enough, I hate going to work, I'm not earning enough, my wife's giving me grief, it's hell, to like, oh my God, I could make another £500,000 out of this business. I mean, like Samantha Bateman, she's a classic one. Her and her father came along and they made a plan to generate 1.9 million additional revenue. And I just saw them both look at it. It was on Zoom, wasn't it, Kate? It was like last summer. They both looked at each other and they were like,
I think it's amazing as well, because it changes people's lives in the ways that it matters to them. Because some people it's about the money, some people it's about getting time back to spend with family, or wanting to be more with their children, or not being governed by the reins of the business that's controlling them. So for them it might be getting out. There's people that come in that are looking to sell on or pass down to family members. There's so many different reasons that people want change, and I think it's dispelling that myth that everyone just thinks if we just get more stock and we just get more landlords, then everything's going to be okay again. And it's so much more complex than that. And seeing the change in people, as Sally talks about the boot camp, when they come in on that one day and they're sort of afraid and the fear and they're closed-minded, all they think, I've been in here 30 years, what am I really going to learn? To day 4, when people are just, you know, open, and we create that community where we support and help each other, not just, you know, us coaching them, they're coaching each other. It's really very, very special. It changes lives, and it's an honor to be able to do it. Genuinely, it really is.
I've heard amazing things, and certainly if you catch clips or if you've seen any of the sort of stuff that you do, it's high energy. It can only be ever really accurately compared to the sort of things that we might see across the water in America, in the way that people tend to sort of get, you know, passionate. They're on their feet, they're getting involved, and they're, you know, and it's sort of like it's a religious experience that they're having with you guys. It's an awakening.
It is passion, though, because this is people's lives. I mean, you spend 85% of your time working, you know, and this is people's blood, sweat, and tears, and time away from their family and their money, and people are leveraging their houses, and people are working for, you know, this is passionate. So let's make it okay for them to feel that again, you know.
I think there's a flip side.
Change.
There's a flip side to it, because what you probably don't see from the snips and the clips and things that you see out there, you see, oh yeah, and it's like some sort of cult, which we've been called before, but it's not.
By the way, just
worst things to be called.
Absolutely, I don't mind. I'd be a high priestess any day of the week. That's fine. But what you're not seeing is the fact that, say for example, Samantha, who I just mentioned, she was on stage at Rainmaker Live this year, sharing her story of how distressed and depressed and anxious and everything that she was, and how she's built this 1.9 million plan. She's only generated £140,000 additional revenue in 9 months. I mean, that's nowhere near the 1.9, but she was so proud to be standing on that stage, to be able to share how she did that, to help the 300 people in the room do the same. Tom Soane, you know, standing on there and sharing his story, to be able to go through that pain and angst of, like, you know, that knotted stomach, that I can't pay my bills, that, you know, I mean, Tom had bailiffs at the door, it was that bad. To then be on stage saying, I've just made 100, 200, 300, 400, 500k, whatever it is, and I'm going to show you how. It's like it's a community. So it's letting agents serving letting agents. It's letting agents helping others grow. And that's what's amazing about it. It's not just me going, hey, do this, put your fees up. What it is, it's other letting agents saying, and I did this through lead generation, and I did this through just getting out the business and focusing on the things that are important, and I did this through focusing on making profit, and I'm now earning more money than I've ever made. But the key thing is here, I'm loving my business again. And so that energy comes from the emotive feelings of the people that have been through the process, and they're relieved. They're like, my God, thankful. I can now live a life and go on holiday without worrying the place is going to burn down. It's all part of that thing. And I think that probably doesn't come across in the videos and the snapshots, because you don't see it, but it is a community. Rainmaker Live, for example, is 90% of the letting agents speaking and sharing their stories about how they grew. So
it's a family, it's a community, and there's support there, and it's not a one-day event. It's something that endures and lasts through the year, in terms of day-to-day support that people may need if they lose focus or they lose a little bit of that passion every now and again. Somebody gets a bit jaded, you can pick them up. So for those of us that have decided that we wish to stop working in the business, we want to work on the business, and we want to get a clear plan together, what's the best way of them engaging with you guys? Where would they start?
Most people, in fact, nearly all of the people that have engaged with us and have gone through the journey of transforming their business into a highly profitable machine, which is the goal, started coming to one of our one-day masterminds. We do one-day event. It's a bit like a taster, because it's a bit like, who are these Agent Rainmaker? Are they going to make me sign a cult single in blood? What's all this about? You know, who are they? All right, so they usually like to come along to a one-day taster day. Most people can invest a day. And from that day, I will usually share about 16 different strategies for growing your business, building profit, generating more leads, getting rid of the bad landlords, getting more of the good landlords, that sort of stuff, converting let into fully managed, etc. So all those sort of things. That's usually where most people start. Now, we normally charge £297 for those days, but I know with Kerfuffle you like some Scooby discounts, and you like to offer good value. So we've got a link that we can share somewhere. I don't know where that's going to be, but you can actually get in for £97, and that'll give you a whole day with me. It's me that runs it. And we've actually had people go and generate 140 and 200,000 pounds from that one day alone, just the one day, you know, because it really does open your mind to what's possible. So I would say start there. That's probably the best bet.
Sounds fantastic. I might give it a go myself. I
Come along, you'll love it.
idea of this. What's the
You have to
Very
sign your
welcome,
name in
David.
blood, though, David.
It sounds like it's a deal worth making a pact with the devil for. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that.
What are you saying?
Even got the colour.
We're on.
It's great as well. We run them virtually as well, which means low impact for people traveling and things like that. But it's fantastic, very interactive. I think we've all suffered from death by Zoom recently, but our events, as you quite rightly say, they're not like that. They're very high impact, very sort of interactive, and we have had some incredible results just from that one day. And it's a really great chance to come, be motivated, get some great instantly actionable tips for your business, but also see what we're doing, see what we're about, and get a real taste of Agent Rainmaker.
Well, I highly recommend that agents check you out and engage with you and give you a try. Go and get your time back, guys, and start earning some proper money. Thank you very much, Sally. Thank you, Kate. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, David.